This antique chamber stick is hiding a secret in plain sight, and if you can learn to spot it, you'll uncover something incredible.
Frontal nudity.
See, you may have heard that silverplate is effectively the clutter of the antiques world. It's pretty, and some of it's even functional, but there's so much out there that it isn't really worth anything. If you take the time to dig through it though, you'll occasionally find an item like this wine coaster. And if you look closely, you'll see that there's something a little bit strange about it. For one thing, silverplate is almost always marked in some way, but a piece like this probably won't be. If you do find a mark, it might just be an oddly cryptic symbol.
The Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch.
What we're looking for is evidence that you found a piece of old Sheffield plate. It's still technically silver plate, but it's definitely not clutter. In fact, to some collectors, OSP is worth even more than solid silver. The best identifier for it is the secret in plain sight that I mentioned, and the easiest way to see that is to look back at 1743. Before we go time traveling though, let's address something. You may have heard me say may have just now. Phrases like that, should have, might have, would have, and so on, never include the word of. A term like should have might sound a bit like should of, but it's just a contraction of the words should and have. If you ever see should have, it means that the writer should have paid more attention.
Skip a bit, brother.
Now, the reason why old Sheffield plate is so coveted has to do with how and when it was made. In 1743, a silversmith named Thomas Bolsover discovered that silver and copper will fuse together under the right conditions. They'll still have distinct colors, but they'll behave as though they're one piece of metal. If that piece is milled and shaped, it can be made into things like this chamber stick or this wine coaster. The process took a lot of skill, but smiths in Sheffield, England quickly perfected it. And for the next century, Sheffield plate was offered as a lower cost but high quality alternative to sterling silver. Sadly, the march of progress completely trampled the entire trade. In the 1840s, the electroplating process was commercialized, and it led to the market being flooded with mass-produced silverplate. For a while, there was no discernible difference, but as time passed, something subtle started to emerge.
Full frontal nudity.
If you look closely at a piece of old Sheffield plate, you'll see hints of copper showing through in certain places. That's called the bloom or the bleed, and it's where hundreds of years of polishing have worn away the silver. What's left behind is a smooth, almost perfect gradient, whereas electroplated items will have a starker and blotchier separation between the metals. In short, old Sheffield plate is pretty special. It's much older than electroplate, it took a lot more skill to make, and its best identifier, that secret in plain sight, only shows up after it's been taken care of for centuries. Nowadays, OSP gets mistakenly lumped in with the clutter, but if you ever find some, you'll know that somebody should have looked closer.